I'm thrilled to introduce twin authors and friends who I've known since high school, Jennifer and Julia. Now they've made me promise not to tell you which one is which, so I'll tell you a little bit about each of them instead, beginning with Jen. Jennifer loves bagels with cream cheese and lox, is a former gifted and talent teacher, and quite brilliant herself. One of her favorite childhood books was Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time, and she loves guinea pigs. So much so that one particularly beloved one was named Lady Guinevere Scrumptious. Jennifer is the author of the highly acclaimed book Yellow Star, which won a Boston Globe Horn Book Award for excellence in children's literature and was a school library journal best book. This profoundly moving book is based on the true story of their Aunt Sylvia's childhood during World War II Holocaust. Out of 270,000 people who entered the Lodz Ghetto in Poland, only 12 children walked out alive, and their Aunt Sylvia was one of them, and she'll be here later today. Jennifer is also the author of MindBlind, about a 14-year-old gifted boy who has Asperger syndrome and is searching for his place in the world. Now, Julia is one of my favorite mistresses of fun. She worked at Chuck E. Cheese during high school, and in fact, she was Chuck E. Cheese sometimes. When she was 10, she wrote to an author she admired. He wrote back and gave her some advice that has inspired her career ever since. I might ask her about that during Q&A. Julia also wrote Sabrina Bryan's Dancing with the Stars blog, which I followed. I was a big fan of that show. And she also had a cameo in Read It and Weep, a Disney movie based on her book, How My Private Personal Journal Became a Bestseller. Julia is also the author of several popular middle grade books, including Liberty Porter, First Daughter, about a young girl whose father becomes president. And her newest book is about to come out, Emma Emmett's Playground Matchmaker. In addition, Jennifer and Julia co-author the Trading Faces series about identical twins, Emma and Peyton, who switch places in middle school. And their newest book, the fifth in the series, is called Triple Trouble. On that note, I present to you my good friends and favorite double trouble, Julia DeVillers and Jennifer Roy.
Thank you, Christine. How many of you, I want to see a show of hands, think that I am Jennifer Roy? How many of you think that I am Julia DeVillers? Should we tell them? Or should we let them go the whole time, not really knowing who's who? Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Roy, and this is my twin sister, Julia DeVillers. However, before her name was DeVillers and mine was Roy, we actually had the same name because we grew up in the same family and we were born on the same day.
We have known each other since before we were born, of course. We are identical twins. And thank you, Christine, for the lovely introduction. We have known Christine, who is one of the people that has helped put together this Gaithersburg Book Festival, since we were almost the age of the characters that we write about in this book. So that makes it very fun. And thank you all for coming today. It is particularly nice to see some twin inspirations here in the front row. We do like our twins. One of the fun parts of being a twin is, of course, the moment where people look at you and say, "Are you twins? Are you sisters?" But one of the awkward situations that can happen is sometimes they ask us some pretty silly twin questions. So we've compiled a short list of silly questions people ask twins. See if you've heard any of these before.
Do you guys read each other's minds?
Oh.
The answer to that, I know. The answer to that one is not usually, although I do admit this morning I didn't have my cell phone, and I was trying in my mind to picture my sister and say, call me, call me, call me, or, get a hold of me. Didn't work.
I didn't read her mind. So no.
Doesn't work.
Question number 2. If I smack you in the face, will your twin feel it?
We just had a demonstration. Would you? And the answer is?
No. All right, we won't test out that theory now and see how that goes. No one wants to smack my sister besides me right now? No, I'm just kidding. A little sibling rivalry here.
Which one of you is the evil twin?
confessing to that one. Which one of you is smarter? Yeah, see, the twins in the front row know how to answer these questions. How do you answer those questions? Why do people ask it? But it's fun.
Do you talk in a secret twin language? They just answered our question. They said we used to.
When we were little, we actually had a secret language that we made up, and we talked to just each other in the language. And we thought it was pretty normal to talk that way until we went to preschool, and I called Jennifer by her secret twin language name, which was Doff. I called her Doff. That was fine until Jennifer called me by my secret twin language name,
Doo-doo.
And that was the start of the realization that,
probably not the best idea. So after that, secret twin names were out.
all the boys in preschool called me Doo-doo. It was great. People ask us, do you ever switch places? Well, we didn't actually switch places very often when we were kids. And looking back, we looked a lot alike when we were younger. We had years where we looked a lot alike. And we didn't switch places then. But when we were writing books, we thought, wow, this is a great opportunity. As an author, as a writer, when you're making up a story for school or an essay, it's fun to think about, what if I did something? And then have your character put in that position. So our book series that we write together, which Trading Faces is the first in that series, is about two 12-year-old identical twins who trade places. At first, kind of by accident. But then they start to realize that this could be fun and entertaining and worthwhile.
And one of the things about identical twins is, although you may look very similar, you're not necessarily the same personality. You can be very different inside. So Julia and I have a lot in common. Obviously, we both became writers, but we have many, many differences. And our characters in the book have differences too. For example, my character is Emma. And Emma she's very academic. She's very focused. She loves competition. She's a mathlete. But as time goes on, she ends up, finding a boy crush and, getting into that too. So she's really, the smart twin.
And Peyton doesn't take school that seriously. She is more interested in her social life, and she likes fashion, and she's a lot of fun. But she's great to be around because she's very friendly and loyal, and she is a good counterbalance to her sister Emma. And it's nice because Emma gives Peyton some help in school, and Peyton relaxes Emma and makes life a little bit more fun for her.
And it's very nice, and absolutely it's wonderful having a twin. However, sometimes Emma drives Peyton crazy because of her personality, and sometimes Emma really wishes Peyton would take things a little more seriously.
We'll read a little bit from Trading Faces, which is the first book in the twin series, and then we'll talk about some of the other books that we've written together and separately, and have time for questions. So you're welcome to come on in. Peyton, Chapter 1, because I write as Peyton, and this is kind of fun. I am one character and Jennifer's the other, so we trade chapters, just like our twin characters trade faces. The first day of school before homeroom. Lip gloss. Oh no, did I forget my lip gloss? I opened my tote bag and scrounged around in a panic. I felt my brush and mirror. Ouch, sharp pencil. And yes, I felt my lip gloss. Phew, I'd remembered everything important for the first day of school, that is, the first day of 7th grade. I was seriously excited. Heck yeah, I was psyched. Switching classes, different teachers, after-school activities, my own locker, new people, cute guys. The first day of 7th grade, I let out a squeal of pure excitement. And then there's a whole line of exclamation marks because Emma likes to use exclamation points. Peyton. Whoa, see, I've already traded places with you. Peyton likes to be very excitable. At the exact moment, I heard a big sigh. A sigh? Because it's you. Perfect. It came from my twin sister, Emma, who was walking next to me. We had gotten off the bus and were now walking up the sidewalk to our new school. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Emma asked me. You're thinking how cool it would be to have 9 different classes each day, I asked her. Different teachers to break up the boredom, cheerleading tryouts, student council, and our very own lockers to decorate, hundreds of new people to meet, millions of cute boys. Well, no, Emma said. Actually, not even close. Whoever said identical twins can read each other's minds wasn't talking about us.
Chapter 2. This is what happens with Emma. First day of school. Calculator. Did I forget my calculator? I opened my backpack and searched. I felt my planner, my bag. Ouch! Sharp compass. And there it was, my calculator. Okay, I was prepared for the first day of school, the first day of 7th grade. I was so nervous. The pressure would be on. This middle school was huge. All these strangers. I shuddered. How would I stand out in such a massive group? By studying, preparing, competing, and winning. Ugh, I said out loud. At the same moment, I heard an excited squeal.
Squeal.
I looked at my twin sister Peyton, walking next to me on our way into the new school. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Peyton started going on and on about how cool and exciting our new school was going to be. Sometimes I can't even believe we're related. Of course, everyone else can believe it. It's totally obvious, since we're identical twins. Don't you want to know what I was thinking? I interrupted her. I'd never get a chance to speak otherwise. Oh, sure, Peyton said, obviously not really paying attention. What were you thinking? I was thinking about how many millions of times we were going to get the question. I said, you know, we're just going to be getting that question. The question? Which one are you? The answer, I'm Emma. I'm not Peyton, I'm Emma. Emma. I am first in alphabetical order. I'm 1/2 inch shorter, and I have a freckle on my cheek near my left ear.
And I am Peyton. And Peyton is 1 inch taller and has a freckle on the other ear. But otherwise, it's pretty hard to tell them apart. So throughout the series, we have our twins get mixed up accidentally, and sometimes they mix themselves on purpose. Now, when we came up with the idea of writing this book series, I remember our mom said, I don't know, who's got a brother or a sister in this room? Raise your hand. Grown-ups too. You always get along perfectly all the time, right? It's always, no, not necessarily. So my mother laughed and she said, you two are gonna write a book series together. We get along great, but still, that's pretty intense. And I said, well, we are either gonna be completely in sync and right on the same page with this book, or we're gonna kill each other. Well, we just came out with the 5th book in the series called Triple Trouble. So obviously,
it worked.
We were on
we got along. And it's wonderful and hilarious because I'll write a chapter and then she'll write one and I'll get it and I'll read it and I think it's so funny. And then I realize this is my twin sister. She's an author. That's a big deal.
And this is my twin sister. She's an author too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But we do write books separately. And how about if I talk about mine first? Because then when our
Aunt
aunt
Sylvia
comes, she will be here.
Absolutely.
So I started out writing nonfiction. And how many of you know the difference between nonfiction and fiction? You've been probably grilled. Yes, in school, right. Let's see. Nonfiction is factual information. Perfect. And fiction is... Yeah, fairy tales are definitely a type of fiction. Fiction is something that you made up. Well, I wrote a nonfiction book, and then I decided I was going to try a novel. So I wrote a novel called How My Private Personal Journal Became a Bestseller, which is a super long title, which was why, after it came out, Disney Channel called, and they said, would you like us to make a Disney Channel TV movie based on your book? What do you think I said? Yes. Absolutely. And you've seen it before? Yes. Well, they shortened the title because How My Private Personal Journal Became a Bestseller. It's a little hard to say and a little hard to fit on the screen. And it's called Read It and Weep. And that was a very fun experience to see the characters that I created in my head, like you guys when you write stories for school, suddenly be played by actors and actresses on the screen. And one of the fun things I loved, the character was played by 2 sisters. Obviously, we have a sisters theme going on here, named Kay and Danielle Panabaker. And it was the first time on Disney Channel that an actor named Jason Dolly head apart. And if anyone seen Good Luck Charlie? Yes, and Corey in the house. There you go. Jason has been on Disney Channel ever since that first movie. Now, I got to go to the set of the movie and see it being filmed. And while I was there, Disney asked me another question. Do you want to be in your movie? What do you think I said? Yes. So I thought, what part are they going to make me play? What's it going to be? Very exciting. I had a cameo, which means it's a very short non-speaking role. Well, in my book, there is no pizza parlor. But when you write a book and it becomes a movie, you have to realize they're going to change things around. So we were in a pizza place, and all of a sudden they said, sit here and just act natural as if you were a customer being served pizza. I thought, sure, I can do that. So I sat, I smiled a little, checked my hair was okay. All of a sudden, I smelled the worst smell I've ever smelled in my life. And I thought, what is going on here? I look and I see the crew and some of the cast laughing, and they're cracking up. And I heard somebody say, this is wrong. This is so wrong. And I thought, what is going to be wrong? Well, the father's fake pizza place, he's trying to drum up business. So instead of just pepperoni and cheese or sausage, he decides to put weird things on the pizza to kind of make a name for himself for original pizza. Well, that day they were serving chicken feet pizza. And they decided to make a real pizza with chicken legs clawing their way out of the pizza. Yeah, exactly. So you know that face that half of you are making right now?
That face is now forever immortalized on the DVD that came out. So you can watch the DVD, and when it comes to that part, my son, who's now 11, and we like to, watch the movie occasionally. We'll watch it, and there's Aunt Julie, and just when she makes this face, we freeze.
In HD, giant screen. Yep, classic. I said,
First
thanks.
movie appearance, and that's what we do.
You never know what you're going to get yourself into with these things. But obviously, it was a lot of fun. And I've written other books since then. I have a new book coming out in a few weeks, and it's called Emma Emmett's Playground Matchmaker. That's about a fourth grade girl named Emma who tries to control the playground. She thinks, I'm starting fourth grade, and I'm going to be a rock star. She's not quite sure how she's going to do it, but she decides bossing everybody around might be the way to go. You may have known someone in fourth grade who tried to boss everyone around, and it doesn't always work the way you planned it. And I also wrote a book series that is set not too far from here in Washington, D.C. And that is called Liberty Porter, First Daughter. And it's about a 9-year-old girl named Liberty whose father is elected president. And in book 1, she is moving right into the White House. And that was really fun because I got to go behind the scenes in the White House, do a little research, and see the setup. I met a couple presidents along the way and really tried to make it super authentic. So Liberty Porter gets to live in a place that has a movie theater in her basement and a bowling alley and a chocolate shop in her basement. Imagine that. So that was a fun series to write too. You want to tell about your books?
Okay. Well, speaking of fun books, I have also written some fun books. As you can tell, boys, you might want to check out. This book is pink, lacy, very pink. This book is Cordially Uninvited, and it will have a sequel coming out called Royally Unexpected. And it's about a girl whose cousin, it's secret, she's dating the Prince of England. And then they get engaged. So her cousin is going, she's going to be the Princess of England. So she gets to go over there and be the junior bridesmaid in the wedding. So she was very quiet and invisible in her school. She's just in middle school, just nobody knows her. And suddenly, she's all over the papers and the internet. And unfortunately, sometimes you might know that when you're on the internet, things don't necessarily go the way you want them to. So she makes some blunders and some bloopers and some klutzy moves. And she goes over to Britain, and she's thrilled. She's going to be in the wedding, except the other junior bridesmaid, her name is Pandora. Not so nice. So she's got a mean girl to deal with, and all this wedding to be nervous about, and about 2 billion people going to be watching her and her cousin getting married. So that's what this book is about. Yep. Then, no, I got to do this. There's an audience people who want this.
Okay.
So
The reason we're discussing, I guess we should tell you, is Jennifer is going to tell you about a very special book that she wrote, and the protagonist, the main character, is a real person. She's stuck in traffic, but she's actually on her way here. So that's why we're sort of negotiating timing, because we want her to come so you can see the real life person who became a character in her book.
Okay. So another book that I've written, it's a little more serious, although there's definitely humor in it too. It's called MindBlind, and it's about a 14-year-old boy who's very gifted, and he has Asperger syndrome. Now, does anyone know what Asperger syndrome is? Some people do. Yep. It's something that I think is absolutely cool and really, really interesting. And my son has Asperger syndrome, and he is hilarious, so sweet, and he's awesome. So I learned more about it, and I wrote a book about a boy who has it. And there are so many amazing things about having Asperger's, and there's some things like everything else. Everyone has, issues they have to deal with. Some things they're not so good at. So this book is about a boy named Nathaniel who's trying to figure out how to be a 14-year-old boy and yet have some really amazing gifts and cool things, and have a crush on a girl, and start up a garage rock band, all the while, finishing up his graduate degree in college. So it's a quirky, interesting book, and I was really proud of it. Okay. Now, this book is called Yellow Star, and I do have to ask, is anyone in the audience for Yellow Star? Who knows? I know you are, yes. Okay. Yes, okay, good. The topic in this book is definitely more serious. This book is about a little girl, and this little girl grew up during World War II. And I am going to read the very beginning of it, but I'm not going to get too serious about, what happened in it. But it happened in World War II, something called the Holocaust, and there were these people who were called Nazis, and they didn't like people who were Jewish, and it was back in World War II, and some really bad things happened, but some really good, powerful things happened also, and I'll read about that in a minute. In 1939, the Germans invaded the town of Lodz, Poland. They forced all of the Jewish people to live in a small part called the Ghetto. They built a barbed wire fence around it and posted Nazi guards to keep everyone inside. 270,000 people lived in the Lodz Ghetto. In 1945, the war ended. The Germans surrendered, and the ghetto was liberated. Out of more than 250,000 people, only about 800 walked out of the ghetto. Of those who survived, only 12 were children. My Aunt Sylvia was one of the 12. This is the true story of my Aunt Sylvia, who will probably be walking up here any time. She was a child during this time, and she lived in this ghetto. And amazingly, she told the story. After 50 years, she had never talked about what happened to her when she was a child. But then she told the story. She started remembering things and started remembering more things and more. And I wrote them down, and I wrote them down on little index cards, like if you're writing a paper for school or, on the computer index cards. And I put them all together at the end, and I said, wow, this is an amazing story. I've got to tell it. And so I tried to get my sister to write it, because it can be a sad, some sad topics. But my sister said, no, you're better for this one. So I did. I wrote it. And I'm really thrilled to say that, it came out, and it's used in middle schools, and it's a very gentle introduction to this topic, because when I was a kid, it was kind of, you didn't know anything about it. They didn't have it in the schools like they do now. So I wanted to make sure that kids who learned about this didn't get it slammed in their face. I'm going to read just a little part of it. This is called free verse. It's written in a style, it's kind of like a poem, but it doesn't rhyme, but it tells the story. This is called The Star of David. Orange is the color of my coat, with matching muffler that I got as a present before the war. Dora got the same set, only larger in blue. Yellow is the color of the felt six-pointed star that is sewn onto my coat. It is the law that all Jews have to wear the Star of David when they leave their house or else be arrested. I wish I could rip the star off carefully, stitch by stitch, so as not to ruin my lovely coat, because yellow is meant to be a happy color, not the color of hate. Well, I'm almost done. I'm going to fast forward a few years, and it's the very end, the war, and the Allies, which include the United States and Russia and Great Britain. Well, no, actually, Great Britain was in there. But in Canada, they came over, and they started winning the war, and they were beating the Nazis, and they were getting rid of the bad guys. And Sylvia was still in the ghetto, and they were hiding at night. And all of a sudden, these planes flew over, and they had lights on it. And the lights shone down in the middle of the night, and on the people's fronts and backs who were in the ghetto had these yellow stars. And their yellow stars glowed. So the spotlight shone down, and the pilot realized, there are people down there. We need to rescue them. So the Russian pilot came down, and he rescued all the rest of the people and gave the little children chocolate for the first time in their lives. And so the star turned out to be the symbol of survival. And after that, she walked out and moved to Paris and became a teenager and lived out very happily with my cousin, or son, my cousin Greg, who will also be here shortly.
So it's really special for us because Sylvia, the character in her book, obviously, is our Aunt Sylvia, and she lives here in your area. She also volunteers at the Holocaust Museum. She did. So this will be very special.
This would be the first time she actually came to on stage with us. So we're hoping she makes it.
Fingers are crossed. But in the meantime, I would love to see if anyone has any questions for us about writing or our books. Yes, ma'am. Why do I like writing is an interesting question. Sometimes I don't. I'm a writer, I'm an author, and people are always shocked. They think I go home and that's the most fun thing that I ever do. One of the most fun things I ever do is to be here with you guys and hear from the readers. Sometimes I love writing. Have you ever written a story where you just felt on and you felt it? Have you ever had to do a homework assignment and you got writer's block? You didn't know what to write. You got stuck, and you thought, writing is the most painful thing I have ever done. We experience daily both of those emotions.
However, we still do it. Why? Because we have stories in our head, we have characters in our head, we have ideas, and we're lucky enough, just like any of you, you could take whatever is in your head, put it down on paper, or obviously on the computer, and there it is. It's real. Just for example, my aunt's story. She told it to me. I got it out of her head and put it down, and it became a book.
And we're so lucky, of course, that one of the favorite things about writing is when you have the book in your hand or your story and you get to share it with people. So we're thrilled to be able to share it with you guys today.
Yes? Okay. Yes? No.
I work at an all-boys school, so we've had some different authors in lately, and a lot of them have talked about journals that they've kept, that they carry around with them. That way, whenever they come up with an idea, they can jot it down. Do you all do anything like that in terms of coming up with your ideas?
I'll answer that. Actually, instead of a journal, what I do is I call my sister. We talk on the phone probably several times a day, and I'll say, I have this idea. What do you think? Or I'll say it. Or she'll call me and she's like, I'm stuck here. I'm not sure what to do. So we do help each other out in that way.
But when we were kids, I had diaries that I still saved.
Mm-hmm.
All of my diaries are still saved. Christine may have been in them from my childhood. I know you are. And I'm not going to read those diary excerpts. That was college. But Jennifer and I, strangely, we passed notebooks back and forth. This was before you could text each other before our classes. I'm sure a couple of you remember those olden days.
You passed notes in class?
We had notebooks.
We did notebooks.
We actually would have a notebook and kind of journal there and then pass it back and forth to each other. So yes.
We're kind of doing the grown-up version of that now.
I'm writing a book. Well, I'm trying to write a book now. Do you have any ideas of like how if your book's trying to be a good book, is there any bad guys that you can think of?
Ooh, like villains for your book? That's my favorite part, actually. I love writing villains. I love to have my character butt heads with somebody who's ready to take her down. So when I'm writing a villain, I think about what has bothered me about people who've dealt with me or people in the world. What is the biggest obstacle that drives you crazy about that person? If it's a funny book or something obviously in a serious book like the Holocaust, the Nazis were the villains. So depending on what genre, what subject you're writing about, think about what really is true to your character and what would really upset her, bother him or her, get in the way of it. And there's your villain.
Yes?
Back to your silly questions twins get asked. The worst one that they get asked all the time. Who's older? Like 4 minutes matters.
6 minutes
minutes,
does
yes.
matter. I'm the older twin.
Okay,
So is
but,
Bella.
but all of our lives, she's been the older twin, and I'm like, well, I'm the taller twin, but you know, we're getting a little older now, so I am 6 minutes younger.
Yeah, exactly.
The women in the audience may appreciate that the tide has turned, and I will always be 6 minutes younger. It's a long time coming.
I came first.
I pushed her. You pushed her. There you go. Yeah.
What are your favorite hobbies? Do you have hobbies?
I love how you said that. She said, what are your favorite hobbies? And then paused and said, do you have hobbies? Thank you for appreciating that writing takes up a lot of our time.
Yes,
But-
it does. But however, we have families, we have kids. You know, we do that. I'm very into teaching. I don't teach in the classroom anymore, but I'm very into teaching kids and other people. But I love to scrapbook. I love to read. Read. That was us when we were little, the twins with the books. Read. But by the way, you don't have to love to read or write when you're a kid, and you could still grow up to be a writer, because you have a story to tell. If you have something you really want to get down, just try it anyway. Okay, so you don't have to be a little mini writer to grow up to be a big one, because I thought I was going to be a teacher, and I was. To me, it was a surprise becoming an author. And hobbies, scrapbooking. Julie, hobbies, music.
Socializing.
She's the social twin.
Yes, sweet.
Do you ever write like half of a book then stop when you think you don't like it?
Last week. And I mean that.
She did. Sometimes they just don't work. You think it's a great idea, and you think you can do it, and then you write it, and all of a sudden you realize, you know what, either this isn't working, and then either you figure out how to fix it, or you're just like, this really isn't working, and I'm not having fun. And if I'm not having fun writing it, I don't think the reader's going to really enjoy reading it. So what you could do is we put it aside. You can put it aside, come back to it another time, or put it aside and leave it there, and 10 years later it's still there. Okay?
It's all valuable writing
it is.
practice. It always
Everything you
teaches
get out.
something. Yes. But don't let that discourage you and frustrate you, because I don't know of any authors who have not started something and not continued. Yes, sir.
Hi, on the book about the Yellow Star, what kind of sources did you use? Mostly family? Did you interview other people who'd been in that ghetto?
That's a very good question. Now, because this was the story of one person, one little girl, I blocked out everything that had to do with the Holocaust while I was writing this book at first, because I only wanted to know what she thought and what she knew. So for a while, I was just this little girl progressing through the story. Later, I went back and I did research, because in between the chapters, it talks about the history of the World War II and everything like that. And yes, I did talk to other people in the family
Plus,
after.
our father actually was a child survivor of the Holocaust as well. So we grew up as part of the Children of Survivors community. I wrote a master's thesis on a Holocaust topic. So, I mean, it's very much the fabric of our being.
In us, yes. And since then, I mean, I've met so many amazing people who have stories to tell, from that time.
Most of the people I know say that you have to be a good reader to be a good writer. What do you think about that?
I actually have one particular friend who writes books for reluctant readers, and I've seen him speak, and he says he did not like reading books when he was a kid. Some people have dyslexia or learning disabilities, and reading does not come naturally to them.
Other kids prefer to be outside doing sports or doing other things besides reading.
Now, for me, as a writer, I love to read, and I love to read everything in my genre, and that is part of my research, and that is just part of me. So yes, personally, I say, I love to read, and reading books helps, but I also know that it doesn't necessarily rule anyone out as an author.
Right, because, I mean, you could grow up and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to write the book that if I were a kid that I'd maybe want to read. I wasn't much of a reader, but I want to see if someone else, can get and read my book. And a lot of people do that.
Are you ever going to write fantasy?
Interestingly, Christine, in our introduction, talked about the fact that when I was 10, I wrote a letter to an author who became my pen pal. He wrote me for 8 years, which was really very inspirational for me. And he wrote fantasy. And I wasn't a huge fantasy reader at the time, but that book struck a chord in me. So I would never say no. And your favorite book is?
My favorite book of all time is A Wrinkle in Time. Now, I read that book in 6th grade, and prior to that, I'd only read, the Judy Blume, or today it would be, realistic books, real girl books. I had no idea, but I read this book, and it was kind of science fiction, kind of fantasy, and it made me think, wow, there are other books out there. I would love to read more. And if we're ever going to write fantasy, yes, I have been trying a few ideas out and mentioning it, and I plan to write something like that sometime.
Great. Mm-hmm. What are we getting the wrap up? Oh, great. Excellent. Then that wasn't a wrap up symbol. Someone who was waving at me. That was a question. So, question.
Okay.
You want to see what real identical twins look like? Come here. We have met Emma and Bella today. And I just showed this. They're a showpiece because, of course, you always get asked, "Do you dress alike, or did you ever dress alike?" Jen tries to stand out by wearing a sling today, just so people will ask her the question, "What happened to you?"
When my Aunt Sylvia came, she's a worrier. That's when I was going to announce what actually. Don't worry, I'm okay. I just sprained my arm a little bit before I got here. It has nothing to do with the festival or reading or writing.
But these two are hardcore. They've got the whole matching uniforms. The whole ponytails together. Let's see. Oh, but you have blue earrings.
And you have... Wait, they're like the diamond type earrings.
And then the mother always will say, and you have the dimple. My mother would say, you have the beauty mark.
I had a beauty mark.
And then my little sister, we have a little sister too, she'd go, it's a mole. That would be the little sister's role in things. I want to introduce my Aunt Sylvia, who is walking into the tent right now with her son, Greg.
Thank you, Emma and Bella.
Thank you, twins. Mm-hmm. This is very special. I might cry.
I was just going to say, I think I may cry. I just read the sections from yours. Okay? But come up here. That's okay. So, this is what it was like, kind of, when we were working on Yellow Star. Ring, ring. Hi, Aunt Sylvia. I have another question for you. Do you remember what you ate when you were living in the ghetto? And she would say, she would say, ugh, I don't really remember anything. The food was terrible. Ugh, Jennifer, I don't know. But actually, then she would remember. She remembered so many incredible things that, as I said, at the very end, it was a miracle because not only did my Aunt Sylvia, right there, but her older sister Dora, her mother, and her father, Papa, who is the hero, definitely one of the heroes in this story. I mean, there are a lot of heroes, but he was courageous, incredible, and everybody loved him. He was amazing. They all walked out of the ghetto together. And as a whole family at that time, that was truly a miracle. So, you know, it's a heavy book, but it has a wonderfully happy ending, obviously, because I have an Aunt Sylvia. And Julia and I also are lucky enough to have a cousin Greg who's sitting down instead of standing up and waving.
Does anyone have a question about Yellow Star? Or now that you have this great opportunity with Aunt Sylvia here.
It's more of just a comment. I was a teacher of middle school children, and this is a topic we spent a lot of time with. And I also trained at the U.S. Holocaust Museum to be a guide for my students. The gift you have given these children by telling your story to your niece and letting her write it for you is very, very powerful, because with your words on paper, the story that you told and the story of others will continue long after your voice is not with us. So thank you very much for the teachers and students.
Yes?
Was it scary?
Yes, very scary, yes. But we were waiting always, it's going to get better next day. We were saying next day there was a song, next day is going to get better. And it was a long time, but it got better.
After the ghetto was liberated by the Russians,
Yes.
Where did you go? Did you stay in Poland? Did you go to Germany?
Yeah,
When did
we
you get to the
stayed
States?
for a while in Poland, and it was not very good for us. The children, especially in school, were not very nice to me and to my sister. So we decided to go to Germany. And from Germany, we went, my mother had a brother in France. And when I arrived in France, the children were so nice in school to me. And I was already 12 years old, and I had to start from the beginning, first grade. But the teachers were nice, and the children very nice. So then I learned to speak French.
And after that, obviously, she had to learn to speak English because she moved to America. And she moved first to upstate New York, where Julia and I grew up, and I still live. And later on, when her son was grown and she had grandchildren right around this area, she moved to Rockville, Maryland, where she lives.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. That's another book we've got coming.
Yes, actually, different things happened to different Jewish families during the war, and our dad's family has a different story where that his mother, he was the baby of 5 children. His mother took him over the border into Russia, and they went and they were in a detainment camp in Siberia. So they basically stayed out the war, which was not a pleasant place. If you've ever heard of Siberia, it's one of the coldest places on earth. That also, had some hardships too. But they made it out too and moved to New York State. And my dad's older brother saw this wonderful, amazing woman and fell in love with her. And from Poland. They both came, and they met in New York State and lived a very, very nice marriage.
And have a lovely son. Hi, lovely son. Yes.
How old were you when you got out of the ghetto place?
I was 10 years old. I was liberated the day before my 10th birthday.
Really?
Just the next day was my birthday.
Good question.
Are you still friendly with the other 11 children?
If I'm, my two little girlfriends didn't survive. In the books, they didn't survive, but I remember them. Yeah.
Yes, their names are Hava and Itka, but also one of those children also did survive, and it was a baby that she took care of, and it was her cousin, Jack, and I know that she goes and visits her cousin, Jack.
I was just there.
Tell him.
Yeah, his granddaughter had bat mitzvah, and last week, and I was there.
In
It was
Toronto.
last Saturday.
So
And
in the book,
I used to babysit him, and this is his granddaughter.
so in the ghetto, in the book, he's called Baby Isaac. So if you read the book, that's Baby Isaac, who she saw last week.
Well, we are so happy to have you all come and share this lovely moment with us, too. It's an exciting moment with Aunt Sylvia on stage. Well, we don't always get to spend this quality time together, so thanks for having us at Gaithersburg, and thanks to Politics and Prose for having our books today.
Thank you very much to all the people in the Gaithersburg committee. I know they work very hard to bring us here, especially Christine Kubek, who
Moved on to her next exciting panel. We will be signing books in the signing tent. Please feel free to stop by. And we will be in aisle 12. Thank you. Come to aisle 12.
Aisle 12.
Pardon? Oh,
Okay.
I thought I was going to sit on her lap. Sometimes that happens. They think we're one person.
Okay, just
They
for
give
the
us one
record,
booth.
11 and 12, just so you know, for some teenagers, there's some teen authors on one side of us, but for the moms and dads on the other side, signing at the same time will be two of the original MTV VJs, okay? So
You can visit us all. And
we'll
I
all
know
be there.
anyone who's sticking around the tent is going to be in for a treat because the Stinky Cheese Man is here next. So enjoy the rest of your festival. Thank you for coming today.
thank you so much.